Hello friends, I'm Kayla, big fan of books, big fan of hockey. My two top hobbies do not converge as much as you might expect, so in this vlog I'm going to read a couple hockey-centric books and go to a playoffs game. It's currently May 17th, and last night's game between the Canucks and the Oilers was a big deciding factor if we were going to get to go to a playoffs game. It was very tense for a while. I think this was me watching the Oilers on power play they shouldn't have had. This was me when the Canucks successfully killed that penalty. This was me eating ice cream to cope with it being 2-2 with only 3 minutes left, and this was us when they won. We're about 4 hours from Vancouver. We've never had an opportunity to see them play in the playoffs before. Could never justify the travel cost, and especially when it's like, we live in BC, so like they're our team, but I mean on paper, technically, we're a Habs family. Rob, my husband, was born and raised in Montreal, and while I was born and raised in British Columbia, so you'd expect me to be a Canucks fan, there is an equal amount in the Okanagan of Oilers fans and Canucks fans. But to be a contrarian in high school, because it pissed off all of my guy friends, I decided I was a Flames fan. In my adult life, when my family all started watching hockey together in like 2014, when Liam, my son, also started playing hockey, we all kind of chose our own new teams. I'm a Blackhawks girl, Liam's an Avalanche guy, and Rob remains loyal to the Habs. If we could go to any playoffs game as a family, it would be Montreal. But because they're, you know, not in the running, we are diehard Canucks fans for the season. We've been watching every game. It's been a blast. So we'll either be going to game 7 of round 2 in just a couple days, or if the Canucks make it into round 3, then we will go see them, whoever they're facing at that point. Now you're here for the books, so let's talk about hockey romance. That's not by any means the only thing I'll be reading in this video. I'm also planning on picking up Call Me Indian by Fred Sasakamoose, but I do need to find my perfect hockey romance because I haven't read a lot of them, and I definitely haven't found my perfect one. The only two that I've read are Always Only You by Chloe Leese and The Deal by Al Kennedy. They were very different, but I gave them both 4 stars, and I think my critique about both of them is they didn't contain quite enough hockey. So I have 10 hockey romances that I'm going to read the first chapter of today and decide what I want to commit to for this video. I am keeping my expectations really low because I haven't had a 5-star romance period since December 2022, but I feel like I can get a vibe in the first chapter of if I'm going to mesh with the author's writing or not, and I feel like I might gravitate towards Al Kennedy because I already know that I've liked her before. There are also a couple books here that I know are like fake Vancouver teams, which would be really aligned with what I'm doing in this vlog, so that could be fun. The only other hockey books that I have read are Michigan versus the Boys by Carrie S. Allen, which I really liked. Beartown by Frederick Bachman, which was another 4-star. Then as far as nonfiction, I have read and really enjoyed How We Did It by Carl Suvan. We're big Suvan fans in this house. So I think I'm gonna commit to 3 books in this vlog, 2 hockey romances, and then that other one. Speaking of hockey, I have to take Liam his bag because he's skipping school for the second half of the day to go to a scrimmage. And while he's there doing that, I am going to figure out my first impressions of all of these romance books. So I drove to my nail appointment and I listened to the first chapter, an audio sample of 3 different things. So the first one was Mile High. This is like a cocky hockey player, professional hockey player, and the flight attendant, a flight attendant for their like private flight. I like the writing, but I don't think I'm really gonna dig the dynamic between them. I like that it was dual POV though. So was the next one Icebreaker. This is both about like students pursuing sports, one of them figure skating, one of them hockey, professional sports like Olympic, NHL level, and the writing was kind of meh, and the storyline I think will be fine, but I don't know, like they were both also sleeping with someone else in the first chapter. I don't know if that's a bad or good thing, and also could give like the slow burn if they're both involved with other people first, and it might take them a while to fall for each other. The one that I liked the most was The Fake Out. It had a really abrupt opening and clearly is a companion novel to another one that I don't feel like reading first. This one seems more up my alley because I love fake dating. It's another dual POV, and the guy was right off the bat like, oh my god, there's the team physiotherapist, like she's so hot, I really like her. So he falls first, kind of dynamic. She's not really into it. I think it might have a slower burn kind of tension because she's still very reluctant. It's interesting how a bunch of the last names of the players were actual last names of NHL players. And then The Graham Effect, I also thought had a good opening, a lot of hockey terminology and not just like what a game looks like, but what practice looks like. And I think the dynamic that I might really enjoy is when both of the characters are hockey players. Her dad is the guy from The Deal, I don't really remember anything about that book, so it doesn't really matter. But we're following her now in college. So I've already got 2 that intrigue me, which is exciting. I'm gonna go get my nails done. I wanna go like Canucks blue. I don't do colorful nails, so I might do something a little more toned down. I can't decide if I want to go get jerseys. I feel like we should show up in jerseys like everybody else, but I also feel like it could be kind of a waste. Maybe I will check the thrift store and see if I can track anything down so we can go to the game in the proper spirits. Okay, I got my baby blue, or I think the girlies call this blueberry milk colored nails, and I'm excited about them. And I'm going to read the first chapter of a couple more things. I also have this to unpackage. I hope that there is a hockey charm in here so it feels appropriate for the video, but I'm also going to film just a TikTok while I open it, because it's like this surprise charm business where you can pick out your own necklace and your own bracelet, but they also have this option. It's called, what is it called? Wooden Wolf, where you can go and you can select a surprise option. I think it was $50, and they choose the charms for you based off of your social media. And of course, I had to do it. Okay, there was not indeed a hockey stick, but one of the charms is a maple leaf, which feels very Canadian. There's a dagger, a fairy, a wolf, a mountain, a star, and a book. And I just love that they pick it out for you and surprise you with something that they think is suited. Like, everything here goes together. It feels very bookish. Got myself a booster juice. I'm gonna read a little bit more, commit to some books, pick up Liam, go home. Oh, and I guess while I'm hawking brands, if you saw this and thought it was cute, me too. I ordered it from Bookish Babe Designs, I think is what it's called. I will link them down below. Well, I had no luck at the thrift store. There were no jerseys, there were no books. I almost considered buying this romance, but I left with nothing. The library had The Score by Al Kennedy. And all I have to say is I'm very lucky that I had some wins at the very beginning, because the other first chapters, absolutely nothing is hitting the spot. This one is about a girl staying at a hockey player's house. They're in college, and he was just sleeping with a bunch of girls when she showed up, and now she's going to be the one, you know, to change him. Team players, the dialogue and the chemistry just didn't like work right off the bat, so that's not the one I'm picking. I thought maybe it would because they're both captains of their respective hockey teams, but they like placed a bet on the very first page of like getting into casual relationships and how they couldn't, like, who could make it last longer. I don't know, didn't do anything for me. The Vancouver Vipers as the fake team, and we just followed a player on the team sleeping with a woman after the bar together. We got absolutely no information on the heroine. Actually not even the synopsis tells me. Reviews tell me that she is a teacher. It was very much like the guy's perspective. He was like, I'm the bad boy on my hockey team. I fuck who I want when I want. Like, I want a rom-com, not that like intense, like smutty vibe. I want steam, but I also want funny. Then there was Powerless, which feels like not what I'm looking for. It feels like it's going to be a really intensely emotional romance. And I think people, because I also talked to my channel besties about a bunch of these books, and people were telling me which ones like don't have enough hockey, which ones are going to be too steamy. This one has an NHL player. They're on a ranch. He's hanging out with a girl he's known his like a whole life, and she is just about to get married, but then they don't get married and he saves her. Out on the Ice is about 2 women, and they're running a girls only hockey school. One of them is like the new coach. It was written in third person, which I don't prefer, and it feels like it's going to be a really like domestic and warm kind of story. Lots of like pets mentioned and friends and career dynamics and sick family members, and I just don't know if it's what I'm looking for. And then Pucking Around. The writing was really questionable. We're following a 27-year-old woman. Just her word choice in that first chapter was really cringy. And then she was talking about how, she was like, I'm the daughter of a super famous rock star, but like I would never take advantage of his name and I would never use him for my connections, but she's gonna get a fellowship to be a doctor or something for this hockey team. The Rays are the new expansion team on the NHL. So I don't know, just didn't win me over at the beginning. So we're really crooked here. I do have the 2 that have spoken to me, and I'm glad that I got those. So I'll check in with you when I start reading one of them. We're moments away from puck drop for game 6. I went to the mall and I found myself a Canucks shirt that I'll get to wear. I'm not gonna wear it tonight because I'm rooting for the Oilers because I need them to force a game 7 because we have tickets. And while I was out, I found the book that I'm reading. I didn't realize it was this long. And the first couple chapters, they're like already in a fake relationship. That's what it's all about. She is working for the Vancouver Storm team, and she has a former boyfriend who was terrible to her, who has now been signed on to the team. And he is like, oh, you still want to work on me? Like, you obviously requested to be my like physiotherapist and to massage me. And she's like, no, I didn't. I'm actually dating this guy on the team. And they're like big rivals. So now there's going to be this kind of fight over the main character. I think I'll read a little bit on and off during intermissions. And hopefully the game ends with us knowing that in like 10 hours, we're gonna drive to Vancouver.
Fucking Myers, standing there again for this goal. Look it up. Just watching the puck go in his net. Like an idiot. Doesn't even put his stick out. 3-1.
Going into the third, we're playing a drinking game because we have a bingo sheet and we've almost hit a bingo. My book's going well, and I think the Oilers are gonna win. Hello and welcome to Vancouver. This is the view. Well, that's not a very exciting view. Right behind it though, we've got BC Place, Rogers Arena, Science World. We stayed at the same hotel last time because it's walking distance to the arena. And Rob and I were here a year ago for the Dermot Kennedy concert. And it was so nice just being able to like walk back to our hotel right after. And so no matter how tomorrow night's game goes, if it ends in a riot or it ends in joy, we will be out with everybody and easily be able to come back. The boys are down here somewhere grabbing food, but I woke up this morning with a killer headache and then I had to drive 4 hours here. So now I'm just wanting to relax while they go and figure out dinner, and then they'll bring me some back. Here's a little tour of the room. Really thrilling. All you care about is my snack and my book. Oh, and also we found jerseys. We just stopped by the arena and they grabbed some. I've made it 36 chapters of the way in, so halfway. I've been going back and forth between the audiobook and the physical book, mostly the audiobook because it is told in duet. So like when Rory speaks, even if we're in Hazel's chapter, Rory's voice actor will come in and like play that part. And I do quite like that style. Sometimes it turns out to be a little bit cringy, but in this one, I think it's well done. I am not fully grasping, I think, Hazel's job as the team physiotherapist. She doesn't travel with the team. She seems to be like working out of Vancouver, but also the team is her only client, it seems, but also she seems to only work with like one person on the team, or it only tells us the moments that she's working with that guy because it's her ex-boyfriend and she's very uncomfortable working with him, but it's like never come up anything else to do with anything else. Like she hasn't talked about what she does on her off days, if she has other jobs, how she makes an income, how the like she doesn't have people, bosses above her or a team that she works with, that she communicates with. So like I don't fully understand the scope of her job, and I know I don't need to, but I want to. What we're getting a lot of is like Hazel's number one, you know, the book needs to give her an issue, something to overcome, something to work through. And in here, it's her mother's body image. So Hazel feels very passionate about people feeling comfortable in their bodies and safe in their bodies. And that's why she loves physiotherapy. She's been talking about how she like wants to open a yoga studio and she wants to make everybody feel welcome because her mother has let society's pressures really get to her, and she is always worried about her weight and worried about what she eats and worried about her fitness and is always talking down to herself. So that's just come up like a lot, to the point that it's distracting. Like we could be doing so many other things. She'll literally be in Rory's arms. They're like making out, and she will have a thought that's like, oh, this reminds me of that time my mother like said this about her body. They go out for dinner one night and Hazel has like a complete meltdown because her mother's there and doesn't want to be in a family photo. And instead of Hazel like taking charge in that moment, being like, no, mom, you're beautiful, be in the photo, she just like internalizes it and then has like a complete meltdown, and Rory is there to comfort her. So I understand the purpose of it for the book, but I don't know, I would rather be doing other things, because the only other thing that's happening in this book is not sex scenes, but like sex adjacent scenes. These two are just very, very horny individuals, and that is what the main portion of this is. It's much more on the smut side, I would say, than the romance side to me. I'm really liking all the Vancouver references. It's talked about Gastown and Stanley Park. I think also with her job, I'm like, is there no rule about fraternizing with the players? Like, is there no job? Like, who does she report to? Who does she tell who she's doing what work to what guy? And like, how does it all work? How do they request her to, like, how do they know when, how does she know when they need things done? I don't know that the fake dating is really going to its like perfect level that I would like it to be, because they're pretty much hooking up not fakely really early on anyway, and then they're talking about their fake dating with various people. Like the very first time they decide to do this fake dating, she is in the crowd at the hockey game talking about it pretty openly with her friend, and the rest of the crowd can like hear her, but he is the captain of the team, so you know the person that he's dating is very public and everybody knows right away, and so it just seems weird how she's just blabbing about it. Also, there really isn't anything fake about what's going on because they're already together so much, and then they don't need to fake anything for any kind, like the stakes don't exist basically, because the only reason for them fake dating was just so she could make her ex-boyfriend jealous. But now they're like putting on this huge ruse for seemingly no reason, because it doesn't matter to anybody, it doesn't affect anything, there are no stakes involved. There's no risk for anything going wrong except like each other hurting each other's feelings by not wanting to actually be together. So that's that. I'm just gonna relax for a bit and read and eat dinner and then go to bed. And then those are my plans. Hello, I'm in Stanley Park. These geese want to be my friends. Do we want to be friends? Oh, I listened to about 100 pages of my book and I'm kind of over it. I don't know what I don't love about it, but I don't love it right now. And so I'm gonna listen to the last 100 pages. Which do you think the right decision is? I left the boys playing baseball. This way seems safer. What am I not liking about the book? I just think it's gotten a little cringy at this point. I like all the messages. I think the romance is fine. Maybe I just don't feel anything towards it, which is not uncommon for me in romance. So I have no hard feelings towards it. And at this point, I'm just finishing it to finish it. So I'm gonna put in my headphones. Well, the Canucks lost, which, I mean, it's kind of nice being, like, seeing their last game of the season. It's must have just sad that their season is over. I sound drunk. I promise I didn't drink anything. The people behind, Canucks fans can be obnoxious. No rioting. Pretty even-tempered, I would say. Plus, there was actually a lot of Edmonton fans, so it was nice to see them so happy. I finished my book. I don't know if I feel comfortable talking about it around my family, because my critiques of it
was it hot and spicy?
Are of the steamy variety. It was, I don't know, it was fine, you guys. I'm giving it a 3, which is not uncommon for me. And romance anyway. There was like 20 sex scenes, if that's something that you want to know going into a book, like how much there is. There was some like kind of cringy stuff. If you've read the book, the dragon stuff, I found it really weird. But it hit all of the points. Like, we had decent characters. They didn't do a lot for me. There was a moment where, you know, he taught her how to ice skate. There was a moment where he had to take care of her because she was hurt. He was very overprotective, which was a lot to experience, more than I enjoyed. There was a moment where she wore his jersey and it was all sexy.
Why don't you go out now?
They each had their individual struggles with their parents, and that got explored and resolved. I think the one thing I would say I liked about it is a lot of times sports romances, there's like a huge amount of the plot spent on the character who's in love with the professional athlete worried about like them actually loving them and caring for them because they're just really insecure and they're like, how could this hot, sexy hockey player who everybody's in love with like me, like little old me? And there wasn't too much of that. So it was tolerable in that way. I am very boring, and in a smutty book, I want to know more about their jobs, and I wanted more hockey. So maybe the next one will hit that for me, but we're headed home tomorrow and I'll read something else. All right, let's talk about my next read and the status of what's going on here. So this is Call Me Indian by Fred Saskamoose. This was sent to me originally a couple years ago from a bookstore that was sending out their best books of the year. And this was one that they kindly sent me. It says, From the Trauma of Residential School to Becoming the NHL's First Treaty Indigenous Player. So if you haven't heard of the author of this, he also worked with Meg Masters to put it together. He made his debut in the NHL in 1954 with the Chicago Blackhawks. And it's his journey of reclaiming pride and just his identity as an Indigenous person. He refers to himself as Indian throughout the book and recognizes at the very beginning that that's not how everybody would like to be referred to as. So here's how to talk about certain things. Here's how he wants to be referred to. And it starts out with him being taken to a residential school and the abuse and harm and starvation and forced language that they placed upon these children, stripping away their identity and trying to make them more white. Manual labor and sports at the school were a big focus, and there was opportunities for him to play many sports, one of them being hockey. And then he fell in love with it. Other places saw something in him and took him to various other places for opportunities. I actually just realized I've read another hockey related book, because this is similar to the fictional tale Indian Horse by Richard Wagamese. Hockey becoming something that makes him get out of his current scenario, but also the lifelong impact that residential schools have on you and the generational trauma that comes along with it. People in his reservation never want to acknowledge to each other or to their children what really happened to them, and there just becomes cycles that are difficult to break when you grow up not knowing love and care from your parents every single day because you've been taken away from them and raised in this cruel environment. It doesn't teach you how to parent. And he very much acknowledges in here, like, this is a story of his entire life up until this point when he wrote it in 2021, his birth in 1933, his childhood, his rise into becoming a professional hockey player, what came after that, him having like 9 children and not being the best parent he could be. And I feel like it would probably be a really big struggle to be his child reading this and seeing him acknowledge so many things that he did wrong. But he even says in the pages, like, I never apologized for this. I never acknowledged this. I am so lucky that I had a partner who was kind and loving, because I just was not offering that to my children because of the way that I was raised. And it's not to say that you can't break a cycle earlier and that you are set up to be a poor parent, etc., etc. It's just the acknowledgement that there's so much harm done, especially in residential schools. And the thing about Fred is he never wanted hockey that badly. He talks about that in here, that he didn't want to take opportunities to spend more time away, because once he was out of the residential school, he had to travel. You know, at this time, travel took so much longer and there was so much uncertainty, and there was very little to no contact you could have with somebody who lived at the reservation when you were, you know, in a city a couple provinces away trying out for this hockey team, and sometimes for weeks at a time. And it seemed like these opportunities were so great, but he was like, I've already been taken away from them for so long. Why would I continue? Especially for something that isn't a sure thing, because there are hundreds of people trying out for the same things. But he showed a lot of promise, and he moved up to all of these different teams, and it goes through everything he experienced. And I'm not quite done it yet, but I really have enjoyed seeing mentions, name dropping of so many hockey players that he watched and got to play with that I'm aware of. Talks about so many different records that have been broken in his time, and the ones that still remain unchallenged to this day. The Indian Act was actively changing at this time. I would recommend to you, if you haven't read it before, 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act, Helping Canadians Make Reconciliation with Indigenous Peoples a Reality by Bob Joseph. I really appreciate that for existing and going through the Indian Act and explaining it. And something that comes up in here is the fact that he can't travel without a chaperone, even though he has these great opportunities and he's of a certain age that he should get to go do all of these things. There are so many things restricted from him, but even just like certain traveling opportunities, he has to have somebody with him because he, as an Indigenous person, is not allowed to leave or return to Canada without permission. I'm finding this very interesting to read so far, and I'll finish it later. And now, last I checked in with you, it was the end of round 2, and now we are nearing the end of the Western and Eastern Conference Finals, in which the teams that moved on were the Panthers, the Rangers, the Stars, and the Oilers. Now, I may have had some incorrect guesses of who was going to move on in the first round, but I'm pretty proud that I have gotten 3 of those 4 correct. I just guessed the Canucks instead of the Oilers. Rob is completely out of the running because not only did he also put the Canucks there, he put them in the final and put them to win. So they have been kicked out, as you saw. We were there, it happened. Liam is currently at a 2 out of 4 because he thought that the Bruins would make it further and the Canucks would make it further. But we both have the Rangers and the Stars being the final 2. So tonight and tomorrow, we will see how that shapes up. Yeah, so the Rangers nor the Stars made it to the final. Therefore, my bracket is completely dead. So is everyone else's. So I technically got the closest. But the final 2 teams are the Oilers and the Panthers, which I didn't see coming. I feel like all of Canada is now collectively going to be rooting for the Oilers because we just want a Canadian team to win. It hasn't happened since the 90s. I personally don't think the Oilers stand a chance. If I was taking bets, if I was making bets, if I was placing bets, I'd say Panthers in 4. Maybe Panthers in 5 if I'm feeling generous. Because I don't think a sweep 4-0 has happened also since like the 90s, so it's unlikely, but I don't know. I'm just not excited about these 2 teams being the last ones because they have been, to me, some of the least entertaining to watch this year. I'm not really rooting for anyone at this point, but I'll watch to watch. And I finished this and I'm giving it 5 stars. I'm so excited. This was extremely well written, well organized. A lot of times in a book like this, if it's a biography specifically, it'll be about a hockey player's time in the NHL, getting to the NHL, what got them there, and then the book ends. There, you might get a little bit at the end of like what they're doing now, how they're helping their local community, what, you know, fundraisers or organizations or charities they're a part of, ways that they are continuing their love of hockey in their like retirement. And in this one, you get so much more of his life beyond that because, you know, there's so much after like having a professional athletic career. He's done so many things within the hockey community for sure that was covered, but also just he is a chief and he has participated and been in charge and like been a voice for so many people in so many ways. I just really liked how much this book covered, from his loneliness to his decision to spend more time with his family, the time he spent in British Columbia. It also talked about certain drugs and unsafe practices within professional sports. There were photos in here that were nice to see to just get a better idea of his story. And something really interesting, glad that I noticed the ties between Indian Horse because so did he. And he mentioned in here that Indian Horse is actually a reason that he decided to write this and tell his story, because his story has been told by other people and he's been associated with stories that sound similar to him over time. And this one day he was invited to a screening of a movie called Indian Horse, and as he was sitting down to watch it, he noticed parallels and people wanted to take pictures of him at the event and say like, oh, he's the real Indian Horse. And he was like, no, this is not my story. And he didn't even know that this book had been written or the movie had been made until he was there. And I guess Richard Wagamese had like interviewed various people in Kamloops who knew Fred, and this is kind of inspired by him. It's not his exact story, but there are so many things that are obviously similar in here. And it's just interesting that there's no acknowledgement of that. Even though, of course, Richard Wagamese like has his own connections to the character in here. It is his story, but it also feels like a bit of Fred's story. So I'm very happy to finally gotten this off of my TBR shelf and read it. And now to move on to the last thing I'll be reading over this week. It's The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. Once I get, I don't know, maybe like 100 pages in, because this is an almost 500-page romance, which I can enjoy the longer ones if they're full of elements that I like. We'll see. I'll check in with you and let you know my initial impressions after like that first chapter, which at this point I've completely forgotten. I'm checking in with you. Oh, I just tripped on my purse hanging from the doorknob. I'm checking in with you at 100 pages because I said I would. not because anything really interesting has happened. But here's my progress. I'm using the perfect bookmark. I cross-stitched this last year or the year before, and it's like, you know, a collegiate one that I think is cute. What has occurred at this point is they have a mutually beneficial relationship that they are just starting. Her father is in charge of this thing that Ryder wants to participate in, and so she's going to put a good word in for him if he helps her with her game, because she has a couple like blind spots out on the ice that he has given her advice that she hasn't really gotten before, and she'll really do anything to improve her game. They have a bit of banter because they like met each other, I don't know, like 5 years ago, and they kind of butted heads a little bit, but it was a very non-issue. So it's not like enemies to lovers, but it's also not friends to lovers. They're not particularly friendly. They just both think that they can get something useful from each other, and they both find each other wildly attractive. I feel like the dynamic is pretty similar to the fake out, though it's not about fake dating, just that there is a boy on the team who she used to date, and now there's going to be some jealousy. But I do think I like the setting more of them being in college rather than professional athletes. So I have a couple of busy days ahead of me. I don't think I'm going to get much reading done, and there's a lot of hockey to watch, but I'll update you when I can. Today is an exciting day. It is my husband's birthday, so we just went out for lunch, and now Liam, my child, has a baseball game. And after that, it could be the final game. This could be the end. This could be the Stanley Cup moment we've been waiting for, because it is currently 3-0 Panthers Oilers. I don't think it's unreasonable to think they could come back from this, but we'll see. I'll be watching. I am this far into the book, and I was gonna bring this with me because Liam has like a warm-up to do, and there's moments where I could have been reading, but it is pouring. Absolutely pouring today. I don't think enough to get the game canceled, but maybe we'll see. So I might grab the audiobook because I saw it on Everand, and I might listen to a little bit. But I'm 300 pages in, and what do I have to say? I do like the amount of hockey that we've gotten. We haven't gotten a ton of Gigi's hockey, but a lot of Ryder's hockey. Him like on the ice talking about making plays and like who's doing what and scoring. And obviously the team has been combined, so there's a lot of communication issues and they have to work on things as a team. That's been great. Gigi is actively playing, but her storyline is focused on her wanting to make it onto the like Olympic team, and there's not really much about it, but she's just kind of waiting to see if the people who are watching her invite her onto the team. I do like our couple together. I think they have good chemistry, and they have agreed to have a friends with benefits relationship. But now at this point, they're talking about like dating, which there doesn't seem to be like much conflict for. Sure, there's one guy who's going to be jealous, and her dad maybe doesn't like him. He has a little bit of a bad reputation, but it's not to the extreme point that he's supposed to be like a bad boy protagonist. Is he a protagonist? He is one of the two POVs. I refuse to use hero and heroine in romance books, though I probably should. There's been about 5 steamy scenes, and they've had a great sexual health conversation, which I always appreciate. There's been some dirty talk and steamy scenes in public, which I'm very on board for. And that's that. I'll probably update you when I'm watching the game and finishing the book. Don't mind me in my cozy blankie, but I thought I would update you. The game is currently at 6-1, which nobody saw coming. And I think it's kind of fun, because then the Oilers get to win a game at home, and so their fans aren't disappointed. And then Florida gets to go home and win at home instead of away. And like, that's just cute and special. So that means I have a couple more days to finish this, which I do need. So I'll see you then. Unless Florida gets 5 goals in the next 19 minutes. Anything could happen. Okay, the game ended at 8-1, and I've sunken into my couch. I haven't read any more of my book. I just wanted to update you. Also, update you on Liam's game, because it went really well. This was their 10th win straight. Considering this baseball season only has like 15 games, like, pretty cool. I don't know what I was doing with my hand. And they have their final, I don't even know what they call it, like tournament or championship, whatever it is. They have that this weekend, and his team doesn't have to play for their spot. They are the only team that got a bid to the like final thing. And then all the other teams are going to be competing like this week to see what order they play in at the final tournament thing next weekend. So that's fun. I don't think I really took any footage of this game, but Liam also just got his schedule for high school sent to him. And I feel like when I was in school, I didn't get it until like a week before class started, and you had to go to the actual school and it'd be like posted on the windows and you'd have to stand there and scan and find your name and then find all your friends' names and like figure out whose class you were in. But they just sent it out in an email and their school year isn't even done yet. So we just got all of his information. He's in the hockey academy for next year, which means he, instead of doing gym, does hockey like every other day. And then he got all of his electives. So he signed up for metalwork, woodwork, video production, and some type of computer design or animation or something. And then has all the classic things like science and socials and English and math and French. And that's exciting. And that's my update for the day. Thanks for listening. Don't mind my crooked blinds. I'm gonna fix them someday. I thought that I was going to finish my book and on the night that the Stanley Cup was won, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. It's the end of the second period. Edmonton is ahead by 2, and I'm gonna finish my book during this intermission. All right, it's 4-3 now. Florida can definitely catch up. I did finish my book. I have some thoughts, but I'm gonna watch, see if this is indeed the end, or if I'm gonna post this video before the season is over, which I wasn't planning on doing. So my rating of this is gonna be a 4. I enjoyed it more than most romance that I read, but it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't perfect. I think if it was funnier, if it was more of a comedy, it could have like elevated it. But overall, I feel like this relationship was good. They work well together. There was conflict with families and pressure and friends, and that all got resolved in reasonable ways. The dialogue was good. Nothing was cringy. I think there was like 7 steamy scenes, I want to say. But then things also moved very quickly in the end. If you've read this, you know like how much their relationship progresses in such a short amount of time. I don't love that, but I get it. I listened to the audiobook for a little bit while I was on my walking pad, and it has dual narrators. So if you're looking for that type of audiobook experience, it was good. There were a couple like surprising elements regarding Ryder's past. And so we got a couple like shocking moments, but it didn't go into the tone of like being really heavy or really emotional, which is something that I often don't like in a romance, is when things just get like far too sentimental and they lose all of their fun and banter and steaminess for just like this really emotion driven partnership and all of this heaviness. A lot of romance that I read, there is so much tension within the families or with their job or with the couple themselves. There's just like this attached kind of baggage or whatever that makes the book end up really kind of melancholy. And while we had those elements, they weren't something that added a lot of conflict between the two of them. There was definitely the third act situation, but it didn't feel unnecessary. It didn't feel really dramatic. They were able to work through things pretty easily. There wasn't like too much miscommunication. I'm just thinking of all the things that I typically hate in a romance. It didn't do any of those things, but it also didn't blow things out of the water. I liked the length of it. I'm happy with just about everything, and I would recommend this, though I don't know what other people are looking for in romance, so maybe I shouldn't say that. Happy to have read it. Who do you think is gonna win?
Edmonton. Oh wow, it's been pretty equal.
Oh my god! Crazy.
Oh my.
I mean, this one's going right in. Look at the effort to just swing it.
Good shot. Oh, he's throwing
he's
water
mad.
bottles.
Instead of ending the vlog saying, this is who won the Stanley Cup, I'm ending the vlog with, who do you think is going to win the Stanley Cup? The series is now 3-2 for Florida, and we won't find out for a couple days. So I'll see you later. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
Oh my God.